Hello, everybody, and welcome to another very special episode of Let's Talk, Discuss, Analyze anything and everything that is Dragon Age the Veilguard, as far as the stuff that we have been able to acquire up to this point. I am here joined by five guests who have appeared on my channel from the past, who are huge fans of this franchise. I am very excited to dive into here now that two major bits of information have been dropped as of the last week. That includes the 12-page article that was featured in the Game Informer magazine, as well as a dev Q&A session that took place on Discord. So the six of us are essentially going to be geeking it out, chatting about all of this information, except for the plot spoilers that were discussed there. So we're trying to keep this specific discussion spoiler-free in terms of what's happening in the plot, or at least what's already been confirmed about the plot. For those of you who have not read the Game Informer article yet, do be aware that there are going to be some, I don't know how big, but it seems like a decent amount of plot spoilers, at least for the beginning of the game. So if you want to go in completely blind like myself, because I want to keep that as blind as possible when I'm playing it on my YouTube channel, just be warned if you do decide to take a peek in the Game Informer article. But we're going to try to cover all of that, all of the non-plot related items that were on both the article and the dev Q&A here today. And there are plenty of other videos out there who have done the same thing. So, that's the intro. Let us kick things off by introducing everyone. So please share with us who you are, what your pronouns are, and where could we have found you on my channel in the past?
Okay, so hello there. I'm Callista. My pronouns are she, her. You might remember me as Pasha from Dragon Age Ascension. Or you might know me from my own YouTube channel, Callista Plays, where I play role-playing games and all that. You.
Hi, my name is Sky, or Kiwi over on the internet. My pronouns are he, him, and you might know me from Hark's channel in multiple of his tabletop campaigns, more notably Vito from the Mass Effect Revolution campaign. And I've been a Dragon Age fan for about as long as I can remember, so...
Hi, I'm Micah, because who else would I be? You guys might remember me from Hark's channel, from Athenaeum Tabletop, where I play a star. Isn't that fun? I have a YouTube channel called Micah Let's Play because, it's in the 10, honey. There it is.
I am Roma Has. Everyone around here calls me Roma. I've been on Hark's channel in a number of things. I was in his Pokemon tabletop campaign, and I've also been in a few Let's Plays, like Monster Camp and As Dusk Falls. And also I've been in a few discussions. So that's it's been a wild ride, but I've been around for it.
Hi, I'm Mikey. Pronouns he, him. You will know me from various things across Hark's channel, most notably Nathan Callahan from Mass Effect Revelations. I was also in As Dusk Falls with Roma and Hark. I've been in multiple discussions with Hark. We did a one-on-one first 20 hours of Mass Effect Andromeda discussion 7 years ago now. You can also find me on my Twitch channel, which is surely only Mikey, and you can also find me on the Component Cast, which is where these posters over here are from. They're shows that I've been in. Buy merch, please. Oh, yeah, and of course, the last thing as well is this is my yearly appearance on Hark's channel to keep the contract of my boy toyness rolling over. So every year I have to appear on his channel at least once, otherwise the contract will end. And of course, he was like, oh, perfect, this is my easy way to get him in here, so I'm here now.
Clickbait, yes, okay.
It's not clickbait if it's true, Hark. I have the contract. You want me to go get it?
That's true, yes.
If it were clickbait, Mikey would be shirtless. If it were clickbait...
Who's to say he's not going to be? Who's to say he's not
You gotta keep watching to find out.
You have to keep watching to find out. For the time tags, look at that. No. There we go. All right. So since Micah and I had a separate discussion already about the gameplay reveal on my YouTube channel, I'll have the links to those below. In addition to XEI or Shay, if you'd like to check out that, along with each of our individual reactions to the trailer. I know that Callista has also had a amazingly analytical video on her channel as well. So lots of great stuff from everybody's channels, but I'll try to put as many of those links as I can down below. But, sorry, as I was saying, since Mike and I have already spent a good number of hours discussing this topic already, I'm just going to let the other four kick things off and decide what you want to talk about first.
Obviously, a lot has been revealed. Most notably, I think the companions. That was kind of a big thing recently. So maybe we can start with that.
Why are they all so hot?
They did it
that's
on
the first
purpose.
That's the question we have to ask first: is why are they all so hot?
I mean, we all know
Create
that
bisexual panic.
exactly. Like we all know that the Dragon Age games are just dating simulators with a bunch of filler story about the end of the world and stuff. You know,
It's Baldur's Gate 3 all over again, because I asked the same question. Why is everybody here so hot?
This is true. This is absolutely true. Also, there was the joke I made about Hark being into tall white guys with Manfred, so I think this applies here.
Oh, that's Manfred. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Obviously, with the Q&A, we now know that all of them are romanceable. Well, that is not the main takeaway, but that is one of the takeaways. All of them are pansexual, and that was a distinction that was made by the devs: pansexual, not player sexual, which I do appreciate that the distinction was made. Try to, I guess, stay away from molding the characters to the player sexuality. Actually have them have their own sexuality on their own.
But I do agree with that statement, because I think everyone's biggest disagreement or biggest dislike of Dragon Age 2, aside from the fact that the game was made in 18 months, is the fact that all of the companions are player sexual. They are all written to be attracted to the player, even if it makes no sense for them to be attracted to you. Like, Fenris wouldn't look at a mage and go, "Oh yes, mage attracted to this," because he's a mage killer. He doesn't do that. You know, and Anders wouldn't necessarily be attracted to a Templar if you decided to go down that road. It makes very little sense for all of these companions to be looking at you as the player who has picked these particular things to make your hawk, or in this case, your rook, which, yet again, another thing, they're both birds, as a thing, to be attracted to them for whatever reason. Like, you have that thing of all of the background factions in the Veilguard, and certain ones might not like each other, and that might mean that it might be harder for you to gain the trust and the like of someone who is in a faction that doesn't like your faction. And it makes perfect sense, and I'm fine with that. In fact, I encourage it. It's feels less pandering as well. There's that as well to add to that.
it's also just more realistic. Like, one problem I did have in Dragon Age 2 was the whole Anders goes into the Chantry and finishes off his ex-boyfriend who has become a tranquil. Hey, Hawk. That's always kind of been a complaint of mine. So I'm curious how this will work out. I could see myself like trying to set up Rook with certain characters, but for someone who's more role play heavy, like I know Callista is definitely very role play heavy with with how you do things. So for people who are just trying to get into a romance with certain characters versus people who are genuinely trying to see who their character would romance, I think having them be just pansexual, not player sexual, I think it works in all situations.
Personally, again, the difference between player sexual and pansexual, because that's, again, Dragon Age 2, as I think it was Mikey said, it felt kind of pandering, just like, and I'm like, I don't want to be pandered to. Like, I'm not into that. I want these characters. I like companions that feel like real people. if that makes sense. I don't want like all of the companions to just be like, yes, Ruxa, no, Ruxa, our lives revolve around you. We have no exterior motivation. I'm like, no, I want you all to be fully developed with your own interests, and like, if you've done something that's made me angry, so I'm not interested in romancing you because I think you're a terrible person. Like, I want that in a video game, and you can't really do that with player sexual because they always have to be attracted to the player, and it's just like, this makes no sense. What is this? So having them like, no, they are distinctly pansexual. You have the option, they are there, but if you don't go about it in the right way, if you're doing things that are going to make the character angry, then they're probably not going to like you all that much. I'm like, yes, this.
I definitely agree with that. One thing I really liked about it, like learning that it's canonical, you know, and knowing that each person is fully fleshed out, and that's something the devs are really driving home, that each companion feels like an individual. For me, that's one of the things that I really liked about Baldur's Gate, that all of the companions did seem like they had their own lives, they had their own interests, especially when you listen to their dialogue choices. Like, if you haven't played Baldur's Gate 3, what are you doing with your life? But one thing I noticed, like with Gale, for example, when you got the Dream Visitor, how he referred to his Dream Visitor as a she, everyone else referred to them as a them. So it almost leans toward the fact that Gale was written more as a heterosexual more than anything. And that's something I appreciated in his dialogue choices. Even though still you can romance him either way, but that was something I noticed. And going forward, going back to, you know, Dragon Age Veilguard, I'm curious to see how those lines were written, like how they're going to talk about their past relationships. And one of the fun facts, this is not a spoiler, one of the devs who wrote Lucanus actually wrote him with the mindset of making him, you know, bisexual. And I thought that was really cool. I was like, okay. I'm digging this. So I'm really excited to see how all of it's going to play together when you look at the player and the story and see how, like how you were saying, Roma, like, okay, who do I best fit with, you know, to do a romance with? You know what I'm saying? Or will I just be friends with everybody? You know, will I go that route? So, yeah.
Speaking of writers, we do know who some of the characters have been written by. We know that, for instance, Emmerich, the Necromancer, has been written by the person who originally wrote him in the Tevinter Knights, in the Tevinter Knights short he was originally from. So I am very interested in seeing that, because that short is great.
And I think Lucanus was written by Mary Kirby, right?
Yes.
I think, yeah.
Lucanus and Varric.
And Varric.
I wanted to talk about Emmerich in particular because we were talking about romanceable characters, and Emmerich does seem to be, just addressing the elephant in the room, does seem to be a little more seasoned than some of the other characters, which intrigues me a lot. And I know that there's already a lot of memes out there, including one about romancing Manfred, which again is
which was addressed in the Q&A as well.
which was addressed in the Q&A, and I don't think this is spoilerish, or at least not major
the way
spoilerish.
the ways it was answered was not really spoilerish. So
yeah, and if people are like off put by that comp set, I totally understand. However, if you've played Divinity: The Original Sin 2, you can play as an undead character in that game, and your undead character can romance other people. So it's a thing in fantasy. But half joking aside, I really am curious just to see what his personality is going to be like. Like, is he older but is he like young at heart? It doesn't seem like that's the case. So I'm trying to figure out. He's the one that I really would like to see the most content from. Just how does he sound? How does he carry himself? How does he behave? because a lot of the pictures, the way that he's depicted in the trailer and the pictures, it's, I don't know, he's kind of just an enigma to me. And especially as somebody who is a necromancer, I'm trying to figure out how I can create a character that would still be available to someone like Emmerich, but while also still being available to everyone else. Because I'm going into this really not having any idea who I'm going to romance. And normally with a game like this, I do. And right now, I honestly don't. And I'm just kind of trying to feel my way through the game to determine that. So,
yeah, the companion choices this time around are incredibly strong
and diverse, very
and
diverse.
Yeah.
I, for one, am very glad that we finally can get a dwarf romance. We can finally have a dwarf romance. I was wanting to smooch Harding like in Dragon Age Inquisition, and I know that she has kind of a small-ish, romance possibility with the Inquisitor, which, I'm curious if she'll bring it up in this game if you did romance her as the Inquisitor. It's like, well, we've drifted apart over the past 10 years or whatever. But then when the concept art came out and I saw that tall Kunari lady with the long flowing hair, I became very interested in her. And then I saw Nev in the gameplay one, and I started looking at her. So it's like, it's a good problem to have when you're not sure which direction you're going to go in.
Yes.
Yes.
So my two little things to follow off that is the first one with Emmerich is I wonder if he's more like Rex or Drax, because those are two older companions that we've had before in BioWare games, where Rex is old but young at heart and loves his friends and is very chummy with people who he enjoys, while Drax is just grouchy. He's that grandpa who everyone loves, but he's grouchy as hell. That's what I'm worrying. Or maybe he'll be a different archetype altogether, which would be interesting to older companions and think of off the top of my head in Mass Effect in BioWare games. And the reason we probably don't think of them as older is because they're not human. They're alien and they live for 1,000 years naturally. So that makes it very difficult in our heads to wrap that around it. But those two are 2 millennia old combined. Older even. I think Drax is 1,500. So there's 2,500 years of experience there. And the second thing is that I wonder if there will be polyamorous choices in this game. Because there were in Baldur's Gate. You could be polyamorous in Baldur's Gate. And I wonder if in this one you can be polyamorous too. Because that would be it'd be very interesting if you could romance Tash and Harding. Get every spectrum of the tall scale you want. I'm I want to climb a tree, but also, be able to cuddle my short queen. You know what I mean? We want both.
I would be happy being the middle bar.
Excellent sandwich situation. Tall queen. You're the big and small spoon. It's a great time.
For a minute there, I thought you were going to say, you can climb the tree, but you can also sit on the rock. That's where I thought you were going.
I love that. I wish I'd said that because that's great.
Wow. Okay.
Let's coming in with them.
Wow.
Knockouts. Just bang. I'm out.
In terms of romance dynamics, the only question that was answered in the Q&A was the fact that if you don't romance certain members of your crew, it's possible that they might kick some action in between each other. So there is the possibility that some might...
I love that.
Some might fall in love, and so the example that was given was specifically Tash and Harding. So I don't know if it was given at random or if that's an actual possibility in the game. But so I do like that they're bringing that back, because if I remember well, in Inquisition there was Iron Bull and Dorian, that if you were bringing them together on your crew and wasn't romancing either of them, they could end up together. And there was Tali and Garrus in the Mass Effect series as well.
Yeah,
that could end up together as well. So that does make the crew feel more alive. I feel like you're not the only one getting some.
Is
I mean,
is it bad that I'm kind of hoping? Just I like drama. What can I say? Part of me hopes that like two companions they hook up and then they have a really messy breakup, and you can just be there to watch it. Like I just want some really passive aggressive banters.
You either watch it or have the option, if you want to try to fix things, help them work things out, if that's what you choose to do. I think that would be really fun to participate in that. You know, sort of playing not matchmaker but match repair.
You're a couples counselor. Congratulations,
There you
Couples
go.
counselor. I feel like that would be fun, personally.
Rook's unknown
Um,
fourth specialization for their class is couples
Mediator,
counselor. We did
yeah.
that.
Right.
Right.
Therapist. Let's
Oh.
go.
Oh god, just I've repaired Harding and Tash's relationship. Who's next? Solus and Lavelle, and I'm not touching that. Nope. No repairing that.
You couldn't pay me enough gold to touch that. Nope. What do you mean he lied to you for a year, then chopped your arm off? What do you mean you still love this man?
You can fix him. No. Damn.
What I am most curious about with romances, and if I was able to ask the devs any question, this would be my main question, is are we going to have non-party member romances? Just like we did in Mass Effect Andromeda with Gil and, is it Suki?
Suvi.
Gil and
Suvi, I think.
Suvi.
Suvi.
Gil and Suvi.
There was the Asari reporter and the Angara museum curator as well.
That's true.
Mm.
And in most recently Baldur's Gate 3, were there romances in Baldur's Gate 3 that were not in your party?
Not
Am I thinking of something
romances. Not romances. Like
Right, you can have little
Yeah,
trysts.
yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, Dragon Age Inquisition, of course. In Dragon Age Inquisition, there was Cullen and Josephine. So, I'm curious if they'll have that this time. I understand that there's already a large roster of people that you can romance as it is. But yeah, that's something I'm curious about. And the only reason I guess the ulterior motive behind that, without knowing what's going to happen after the gameplay reveal, if Varric would be a romanceable character, finally. Because if he is, that's how I would see that happening. But I'm also not holding my breath, because I know that there's a lot of theories, and whether or not those theories are confirmed or not, I don't want to know about those yet. So, about Varric. So.
Yeah.
I did want to ask everyone about kind of taking it in a different direction. So we learned, isn't a spoiler, but we did learn from the Game Informer article that the character customization is going to be more detailed, in that you can customize, like, Rook's body as well, which hasn't been done so far in Dragon Age. So for me, definitely a big complaint from Dragon Age Inquisition and Dragon Age in general has just been the hair options.
Ooh.
But if the ponytail that the NPC had at the beginning of the gameplay demo, if that is in the character creator, I'm gonna be happy.
That and the little girl that Harding is protecting, who's with a man. She's got this long hair with like a braid, and I'm like, I want, please.
They did say we are getting long hair options, so
I
Finally.
do remember being really upset with with Mass Effect Andromeda's character creator, because it was such a massive step back from Dragon Age Inquisition's character creator, where like you had like heat maps where you could like raise and lower cheekbones and like make your face narrower, thicker. But one thing that like I think a lot of people who can agree with this are, like, if you're not the usual body shape, like if you're like me and you're tall and wide, or if you're short and stocky, or if you're tall and thin, or if you're short and you're a little bit thinner as well, there's lots of body types out there that are very underrepresented in video games in general. And I think the idea of adding in like the ability to do stuff like that, because like Fallout 4 had a body slider. It wasn't great, but it was at least there. You could make your character a little bit more muscular, or a little bit more thin, or a little bit taller, or a little bit, chubbier if you wanted them to be, which was incredible in 2014. but now you'd hope that there is like full on like this is an entirely different game. But in 1/40,000 Archetypes, you can make your character taller or shorter, and it has an effect on the game because it's a third-person shooter. So if your character is taller, it's harder to shoot over you for characters, and if you're shorter, it's easier. So it has an effect on the gameplay. But I would love there to be an actual like, here's a slider, here's like your lineage's like range, because you can make a tall dwarf, you can make a short Quinari for their species essentially, which I would be very interested in. And I hope it reflects in the next Mass Effect game. I want to play a really tall human, or a really short Quinari, or a really short Quarian, or a really tall Krogan or something. I want to play something different.
Yeah, when I was creating my main character in Dragon Age Inquisition, who was a Qunari mage, I really, really, really wanted to make him like slimmer, and less muscular, because I don't know, that just made more sense to me as a mage. But he was just very like large and muscular. I get it, he's a Qunari, so embrace the Qunari-ness, I guess.
And we get into the hair option, then there's like 3.
Right.
As a Qunari player, I guess you.
So I think that it has been. I have seen at least art representation of a Rook who happens to be a slimmer Qunari mage, so I'm excited about that. In the character creator.
I don't know if it was in the Game Informer article or somewhere else, but I've seen people that have seen the character creation compare the body sliders to the Saints Row series body sliders, and that just makes me very, very excited, because the Saints Row series is very extensive when it comes to character creation, like body character creation. Like, you can make anything in that character creator, so compared to Saints Row, that makes me very happy.
I'm a chubby lass myself, and ever since Dragon Age Origins, I always had in my head my Amel. I always was like, she's chubby, she's living in a tower, she's not going to get, like, aside from cardio, she probably isn't getting all that much exercise. I always pictured her as being quite chubby, and it's like, no, stick thin. And I was always just kind of like, I just want to add a few extra pounds, just a few extra pounds.
Yeah.
And so hearing that, like, no, you can make slightly chubbier characters, or you can make them taller, I'm just like, yes. Again, I'm so excited. So excited for the character. I don't think they will do this, but part of me really hopes that they release the character creator early.
Yes.
Like didn't they do that for Dragon's Dogma 2?
Yes.
They did.
I just
would
want
love
to get my hands on it and just see.
If I remember well, Dragon Age Origins had a character creator demo. So I'm holding out for a Veilguard character creator demo.
I do remember that was when they showed off where you can mess around on a grid instead of just the normal sliders. Yeah.
I would love that, just because I know I'll probably spend 3 hours like making my first character, because I think in Inquisition I spent an hour creating my character, and Baldur's Gate 3 I feel like it took me more than an hour as well. And once the game is released, I just want to play the game. Like I want to just dive right in and not have to spend X number of hours creating my character when I could have done that beforehand. So for sure would love that.
Yeah.
And one of the things, like, as a trans person, that makes me incredibly excited for the character creator is that, looking at my notes, can't select pronouns separately from gender.
Yes.
And I mean, there's the genitalia that's also separate from genders. Like, gender, body shape, genitalia, and pronouns are entirely separate. So just the possibility to make someone that is closer to what to someone like me that's I've ever been able to make in a video game. It's I can't even begin to explain how it feels.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I love hearing that from you, because because I can relate in the sense where I also felt like, oh my gosh, for the first time, I can actually make a gay character. Like this is something that is more representative of me personally, and that was huge for me, and that happened years ago, many moons ago. So the fact that I'm hearing you feeling a similar thing, Kiwi, is just warms my heart.
Yeah.
That it gets to that point. And for the people who I think are like, why is this necessary? Or like, why are we catering to a small minority of people? And I'm like, okay, it's a small minority of people, but if it matters to those people and it's at minimum doesn't impact your gameplay whatsoever, is this a feature you're just not going to use or not interested in, it doesn't impact you, like, why does it matter to you that much? if it is this impactful for somebody else, like, I don't know.
I agree.
It's like in Baldur's Gate 3 when the character creator has that skin condition. I can't pronounce it, but that skin condition where the skin is that one where their skin is different colors. Like, I actually saw someone like on Twitter say why does this need to be? And I'm like, why do you care? It's not required. It's not forced on you. Like,
right.
No.
And the only thing someone could complain about is, you know, they spent engineering software development resources on this when they could be working on other things. And I'm like, this thing has been in development for 10 years.
Yeah.
I think it's okay for a game that's been in development for 10 years to include stuff like this.
And I'm also pretty sure on that whole, this thing has been in development for minimum 10 years. Let's be honest, the way that those gameplay trailers were out and everything like that game, they probably could have released this game like 2 years ago if they wanted to.
Probably.
Like, if Mass Effect Andromeda wasn't such a lukewarm reception and, you know, they killed that game as quick as they did, it's arguable that we probably could have gotten you know, the Dreadwolf / the Veilguard, whatever they would have called it when they released it 2 years ago. We probably would have gotten it earlier because they would have went, okay, we know it'll still sell. And we might have maybe not got the same amount of, you know, inclusivity features. But I'll be honest, if they decided to patch this stuff in later and say, hey, listen, we didn't have time to add differential pronoun selectors different depending on different things, or maybe a height and weight slider that we can add in later, great, add it in whenever you feel like adding it in, if it means that you can focus on making a great game. But obviously they've already done all the stuff that they feel like they need to make a great game,
right?
Because it's releasing in probably 4 months, if that. So
Fingers
flatly, it's not that difficult to add those things into a game. It's a variable slider change, that's it. And sure, you can say, oh, it's something that will affect all of the dialogue. Yet again, it's a variable slider change. You know, I don't think it's difficult. I don't think it'll be anything that impacts your development cycle too hardcore. In fact, probably the harder thing would be like some of the stuff that they've mentioned about character customization. Of you can have wilder colored hair and you can have heterochromatic eyes. Those things are probably more difficult than adding in a pronoun selector depending on whatever you want to choose. Flatly.
As a software developer myself, I predict, again, I'm not a game developer, so I'm not saying I know everything there is to what the level of effort is, but my gut is telling me that creating the hair might take more effort than doing what you were.
They always mention,
but that's just me.
They always mention when it comes to like hair and fur simulations in things that are 3D, that's always what they spend the most time on and the most money on, because
it's very hard.
Hair is such an incredibly difficult thing to simulate as a thing. Because like if you look at like Dragon Age Origins from it's 19, 18 years ago now, somewhere like that, 15 years ago. The hair is just a solid block of texture. There's no movement in it. It never moves.
Right.
But then you go forward like 5 or 6 years and then there's movement, and then 5 or 6 years more and it starts to look more and more realistic. But I would yet again argue that if you're spending $10,000 an hour on making sure your hair looks good, don't bother. Very few people play in resolution that's higher than 1080p. Flatly. 95 or 96% of people, I think, according to the latest Steam hardware like survey, play in a resolution that's higher than 1080p. So
Mhm.
spending time and resources on making 2K, 4K, 8K resolution textures is more wasted money and time that you could use to make better games, and that is flatly more impactful than anything you can do when it comes to like pronoun selectors. Like, just as a flat out truth, factually truth, spending $5 billion on making 4K resolution is a lot more expensive and time consuming than making your characters be able to choose their pronouns. Sorry, let me just that's my rant done.
And in terms of hair too, I think if I remember well, they did say they were using the I think they did a showcase a couple of years ago at I think it was E3 too, but
Mhm.
like EA's hair systems, like it has its own physics system.
Mhm. To like stay on the character customization train, what I was gonna say as a fun fact, the NPCs, all you saw the NPCs floating around, that was made through their character customization. So that ponytail could very well be a hairstyle you can choose. So for me, I was really excited about that. And to piggyback on what you were saying, like how you were saying, Hark, like, oh, I can make a character that's gay, or Kiwi, I can make a character that's trans. Like for me personally, I love it as well because the default rook, or what looks like to be the default rook, is a black guy. And it's so rare that we see things like that. And then,
Yes.
you know, the representation in this game, I think, is amazing that we actually have Balara, like an Asian elf. Like for me, I'm sorry. I'm just so excited. There's too many things I'm excited about in this game, but that is definitely one of them. And I don't know. For me, when I saw that, I just really felt happy to see it, and I love the fact that more game developers are being progressive and saying, "Let's include everybody." You know, everybody wants to play. You know, and I love that, and I agree with you, Mikey. Just a simple pronoun. It's just representation, and that's all this is about. And Dragon Age has always been that way. They're stepping more into what I feel is the right their true way of being representation, like of each character, or each player, I should say. So yeah, so for me personally, I'm more than thrilled. I cannot wait to make a short buff mage to run around because I did it in Dragon's Dogma. Oh, and just another fun fact, they may not release their character developer early because you get to make two characters. I won't spoil all of it if you don't know who the other one is, but you get to make two of them. And it would be cool if they did what Dragon's Dogma 2 did, because I know I spent a plethora of time. I made my wife, I made Beyonce, I made myself. I had fun. Like I was just in
Beyonce
there.
wasn't your wife?
No, Beyonce's not my wife. You know, she's just my cousin. You know, but no, the thing that I think BioWare is a little nervous about is data mining, because you know their game is very story heavy. So to give us access, you know how people do, they're gonna be like, what am I gonna uncover? So that's what happens with Dragon's Dogma 2. So we may not get that. Although I hope and pray.
That is
but,
understandable, considering that is one thing we know from the Q&A. The game is going to be entirely offline, so no EA account necessary, which also means no Dragon Age Keep.
Mm-mm.
The choices are going to be entirely chosen through the character creator. Choices for the past games.
Oh yeah.
So how many of them are we gonna get? We don't know. I mean, at this point, like from Dragon Age Origins, it's 20 to 30 years in the future. So we're probably not gonna be choosing like, what did you do during this very obscure side quest in the Deep Roads? But that's probably one of the reasons we might not get a demo, because if people are capable of data mining, then data mining the choices might be a possibility as well.
At the very least, I do hope we get like a demonstration of the character creator, like they did for for Inquisition, where
they They did mention it was in the works, so it
The
will
works, nice.
Well,
it will be shown.
I do have first-hand recountation of someone who was at the the what was it?
Yes,
Gamescom?
Ash,
At Gamescom.
Lady Insanity.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
It was someone else. It was someone else.
Oh,
Oh,
someone else,
yeah.
not Lady Insanity. Okay.
He's in Inside Out too. I have a friend of
Ah.
mine who was at Gamescom, and they got to see the full presentation, and they were very impressed with the character creator as like a whole. Because the
nice.
thing that they saw was a much more extended version of what we saw publicly.
Yeah.
It included the character
Mm.
creator and the bits that we don't see that are cut out for brevity and for character spoiler reasons. Sorry, for story spoiler reasons. But they said that the character creator was very good, and they liked a lot of the choices that they saw. Also, yes, if this is Default Rook, it's probably one of the better looking default characters I think we've had in Dragon Age, to be honest.
Yes. Sex with chocolate is real, honey.
Mm-hmm.
And I just very quickly say, I love the default Rook. There's this shot of him in, I think it would be the trailer. I think it's when they're still in Minrathous, but I absolutely love it. This might sound silly, but I absolutely love his skin tone. Like, you go back to Origins, and if I ever make dark skin toned wardens, I have to use mods. Because
Yeah.
the dark skin tones are patchy as hell, and it's just like, it's no. And there's this shot of Rook, and he's looking into the light, and the light is reflecting off his cheekbones, and it is stunning. And I'm just like, if there are other kind of like variants of the dark skin tones, I'm just like, please, they all need to look this good. They
Right.
all need to look this good because it's beautiful.
That's something that viewers can take for granted is when in live action series, when you are filming darker skinned actors, the lighting has to be perfect in order to be able to, to show them on screen. I learned this very recently, actually, while I was watching a commentary on on Heartstopper, because there was I remember in season 1, one of the main black characters, they were at a party, and it was dark, and they were just talking about how the lighting had to, all the things they need to take considerations for a scene in the lighting, just to make sure that this black character just glowed on the screen. And so I can imagine, the type of things that they have to consider in this video game when you're dealing with video game lighting and stuff. So thanks for bringing that up, Callista.
Speaking of skin tones as well, in my notes, from the Game Informer articles, there are going to be sliders specifically for skin tone hue, skin hue, tone, melanin, and more. So
I like that.
It's gonna be fun.
yeah, they're so much more than what we're going to be able to do.
Going back briefly to the representation discussion we had, I did see a theory. I saw a theory on Twitter that so far we have 7 companions revealed, right? I think 7, yes. And so we have 3 at least male presenting, and we have 4 female presenting. And someone said there's a possibility for one of the female presenting characters to be non-binary.
Oh yeah.
Because
I can
because then
see
you have
that.
3 men, 3 women, and 1 non-binary. And they like the person on Twitter was saying maybe it's Tash, And I said I can't say one way or the other. Who knows? But I did think that was a very plausible theory, and I'd be very curious to
That would
see.
be cool.
That would be great.
Given Iron Bull's line to Krem in Inquisition, I think that would make sense, at least culturally, because obviously I don't know much about these other characters or what the culture of Tevinter is like when it comes to that kind of thing. But we know that the Quinari are very like, as long as you're willing, as long as you are working towards what we want you to work towards, we're okay with you being whatever you want to be. You can
Mhm.
identify however you want. You can dress however you want. You can be addressed however you want. So Tash probably makes the most sense, but I would probably... It would be interesting if it was Balara or Neve.
I was thinking Valara too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was looking at the press release that came out when the trailer came out, and Scout Harding is referred to with she/her pronouns. I think Nev is as well. I don't remember seeing them for Belara or Tash, so it's certainly a possibility.
Yeah. If we're done with the character creator topic, I wanted to go back to a topic that Kiwi brought up, which was the Dragon Age Keep. And so I'm trying to wait and see before I make any full judgments, because my knee-jerk reaction of the Keep not being a thing anymore moving forward, I do admit I was a little bit disappointed, because I felt that system was very like clever back then, because I thought, even if they don't use all of the data in the Keep, they should still be able to just load all of that information into future Dragon Age games, and they can just pick and choose whatever they want to actually like utilize. So the fact that we're now going to be selecting them via tarot cards at the beginning, it does make me worry a little bit, because if it seems like there's a lot of choices that you need to make in the beginning, I think that's fine. If it's like pick 3 things, I think I admit the way it was done in Mass Effect Andromeda, because you got to do the same thing at the beginning of Mass Effect Andromeda. I felt very underwhelmed by the amount of questions that you were asked. I just felt like this is really shallow, which I understand, because Andromeda takes place in a whole other galaxy. I get that, but in Dragon Age Veilguard, that's not the case. We're still in Thetis. So, and even though 20, 30, some years passed by, I think there are some major things that could still be utilized, like even now.
Who's ruling for Eldon?
Right. I presume, if I were to make a guess, I presume some of the bigger choices that will matter will be who's ruling Orlais, just because that was such a big deal in Inquisition. And then whatever the other like main plot choices were for the main storyline from Dragon Age Inquisition.
One thing, I don't know if that's considered a spoiler or not, because they did answer that question in the Q&A. But someone answered whether or not who we left in the Fade.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Is a question that's going to be
Not
answered.
Going to be...
And no. But the way they answered it is that it's not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. So a future game, a future DLC.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah. What do you all feel about the Keep? I'm just curious if you have any opinions.
I'm a little bit sad.
I'm in a very similar situation to you, Hark, because like you can have so many different world states in Dragon Age 2 when you like look at Ferelden. So, for example, in my case, my canonical warden was a female noble who married Alistair, who was king of Ferelden. So, in my mind, you go into Veilguard, and obviously in Inquisition, there's a whole thing of like, where is the hero of Ferelden? And you can get like a letter from them at one point that states that, hey, I'm dealing with my own shit, essentially. I'll get back to you whenever I can. But this is so far in the future from the Ferelden times that it's very likely that Alistair and the hero are both in their 50s or 60s at this point. They could very well have retired from adventuring, and maybe my warden and Alistair are both on the throne of Thetis now. Sorry, on the throne of Ferelden. Yeah, the throne of Thetis. That's the goal here. Maybe they're both sitting on the throne of, Ferelden, raising their kids now, and that's where they are. But then you have various other things. You could end up with Hark and have Hawk and Alistair in the Fade with you, which was a thing I didn't realize could happen until I saw Hark's playthrough, because I never had Alistair become the leader of the Grey Wardens. That was never what I thought would happen canonically, so that wasn't what happened. But then you can have various other things as well throughout Origins, and it feels like it's cut down on. It makes those games feel less important, I suppose would be the way to put it. Like, obviously, Andromeda has that thing of there's like 3 choices that kind of come up. There's Shepard's gender or gender pronouns, whichever one you want to use there, and like 1 or 2 other things kind of matter. But other than that, this is an entirely like Andromeda has the excuse of we're 600 years in the future in an entirely different galaxy. That makes sense. Okay, you're not going to ask too many questions about what's going on in your previous 3 games in that case. But in Veilguard, it feels like so many things are coming together in this game that I think it would make a lot more sense for you to use the keep in this instance. But it just feels like a bit of a wasted potential, I guess.
Yeah, and even if it's like short mentions or references in like a codex, for example. If you pick up a codex and it happens to talk about Ferelden, so-and-so was the ruler of Ferelden 30 years ago, or whatever. I think that would be a really cool touch, which again, I get that if you're prioritizing software developer resources, that might not be a high priority. But for a game, again, that's been in development for 10 years, I feel like it's not too much to ask for something like that.
I also agree that it is disappointing that that they're doing away with the Dragon Age Keep, because I heard someone else say this, and I kind of agree that it makes it feel like not all of your choices really mattered in the end. But at the same time, I also kind of understand, because you've got 3 whole games worth of choices. We're going into a 4th game in the same series. I feel like Mass Effect kind of had the right idea. You've got 3 games, you wrap them up, you continue the story in the 4th game, but it's a completely, new characters, new galaxy, new everything, where the previous choices don't matter as much in this timeline anymore. Whereas in Dragon Age, I feel like it's probably starting to get a little bit cumbersome. Because,
right.
Even when I go back into the Keep sometimes, I'm like, I don't remember this from Origins. I'm just going to choose whatever, because I don't even remember. I don't even remember if I even did this quest. Who even knows? So I feel like when you've got 3 whole games worth of choices moving into a 4th game, I can kind of understand why it might start to get a little bit overwhelming for the developers, because, developers don't always remember the little details. Players do 100%. We will, we're a rabid fandom, but it's a lot for developers to keep track of, and it's a lot for developers to remember all these branches in this giant tree. So I kind of understand why they would want to kind of, I guess, prune the tree a little bit, make it a little bit more manageable. And that's why I was thinking, like, when I first heard that Dreadwolf, as it was known then, would be the final game in the Dragon Age series, I was like, I'm fine with that, But
yeah,
now with the teasers of a possible 5th game, I'm like, maybe the 5th game is going to be a new thing. Like, maybe this is going to try to wrap things up that started in Origins, and then they're going to try to start a new thing. I don't know. Who's to say? Who even knows? But that's just my thought on the matter.
As a software developer myself, I 100% agree with you. And even thinking about that tree just for one game, I know was a programmer's nightmare. So let alone trying to perpetuate those trees into a 4th game. And so I think for me then, what would make me happy is if they just picked like 1, maybe 2 major decisions from each game, 1, maybe 2 Origins, if it actually does end up mattering. Because, okay, if the ruler of Ferelden doesn't really have any involvement in the story whatsoever, that's perfectly fine. It's all okay. I know that some people really felt like the decision at the end of Dragon Age 2, where what happens to the mages, I think one thing that I was most curious about, but I get if this is not going to be like a plot element in Veilguard, one of the ones I was most curious about in Dragon Age Inquisition was what happens if you discovered the cure for tranquility. Though that was another like major thing. But again, I get it. If that's not important to the Veilguard story, then you don't have to ask the player about that. But it would be nice to still store it. It's in the keep right now, but it would be nice to store it so that maybe in Dragon Age 5, it is a story beat that you need to maybe address. And I guess they can do more tarot cards then. But by that point, me, the player, might have forgotten. Did I do that on this particular playthrough? It would have been nice if you could draw it from the keep because it's there. I guess I could look it up, but yeah.
I just very quickly. So when Dragon Age Origins was first announced, the franchise was announced as a saga. So originally they had intended on 5 games. That was the intention when it first released. There will be 5. Now, I think as it goes along, it is like, oh, maybe we can't do 5. Maybe 5 was a bad idea. We should stick at 4 and go for something new with 5 if we continue on. But I just find that interesting. It was always originally intended to be a 5-game franchise.
That's interesting.
On one hand, I am sad about the keep. Going. I do kind of feel like, but I input all of my choices. I did that for Inquisition. What was the point if you're not going to use it, please? My time. On one hand, I do feel a little bit salty, but on the other hand, hey, there are a lot of decisions, and if some of them don't really matter, then what is the point of programming them into the game if they're not going to come up? The one thing I am not exactly, I don't know if concerned is the right word for it, but something I'm really interested to see how they handle it's the dwarfs. That's the one thing where I'm kind of like, you need to focus in on what happened in Origins because the dwarves and Tevinter have such a close history. If I may be blunt, I think, the bar fight at the beginning of the teaser trailer we got, I think that's in a dwarven bar. Because if you notice it, there are a bunch of diamond designs and kind of like overlapping things, very similar to the Dwarven Merchants Guild insignia. It makes up a few parts of that. So I'm like, I think this is a Dwarven Merchants Guild bar. This looks like what that is. So I'm just like, please, at the very least, who's ruling Orzammar? Excuse me. On me. Like, at the very least, I'm like, please, can they do that? Just like insert a little bit of that. But as Roma said, the fans are going to remember these things. The game developers may not. They may forget about the Dwarven embassy in Minrathous that is underground and was once a Tig and blah, 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 but I remember. I will always remember.
It might not even be that they don't remember. It might just they got let go or left years ago.
Yeah.
Because that's also a thing. Yeah. Because, 15 years ago, a lot of those devs who were working on Origins probably are no longer working in video games or working somewhere else entirely. So
Mary Kirby herself was let go, so
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Very unfortunate, yes.
and I feel it's a thing that needs to be mentioned because the devs and writers that were let go are put in a very, very sensitive position right now because the NDA is still present, which means they have a 10-year-old gap in their portfolio currently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's the video game industry is in such a strange position these days.
Really is. But I am glad that you brought up the dwarves, Callista, because one thing I am actually looking forward to, and what I'm hoping to see in this game is some more spotlight on the dwarves, because we haven't really gotten that much since Origins. We had a little bit in Inquisition. We had the DLC, the Descent DLC. And one thing that I feel like that I'm on Twitter and I am not noticing a lot of people talking about the fact that in that press release it is mentioned that Scout Harding has magical powers.
Magic.
Yes. Which if any of us know anything about the dwarves, it's that the dwarves don't have magic. So obviously in the Descent DLC, that one dwarf at the end gets magical power after you defeat the Titan. So I'm wondering Is it a result of that? Is it a result of the veil weakening?
Mhm.
Is it maybe a combination of these things? Is
Mhm.
it happening to other dwarves? What's going on
Mhm.
in Orzammar? What's the Chantry's reaction?
Yeah.
There's so much
Yeah.
possibility of the dwarves getting some spotlight, which they have not had in a long time. Like it's
Yeah.
Inquisition is there's a lot of emphasis on elvish storyline.
Yes, it feels very
Definitely.
elf-centric. Yes.
In Dragon Age 2, a lot of emphasis on, obviously the mages and the Templars.
The mages and the Templars. Mhm.
So I would love for it doesn't have to be a central theme, but it can be a prominent theme of what's going on
I
with the
agree.
dwarves. I feel like there's so much
I agree.
potential there, and I would be very disappointed if they didn't do something with this.
If I'm allowed to switch topics again, the part from the Game Informer article that I was most interested in was learning about specializations and just in general that ability tree as you level up, which a lot of people say is very similar to Final Fantasy X, Final Fantasy 12, I think, like system of leveling, and I find that really fascinating. And I think for me, after reading through all of that, the biggest, I guess you could call this a worry, is the specialization, assuming I am going to play a mage, that I'm most interested in is the necromancy specialization. But we have Emmerich. So what I'm wondering is, will Emmerich still feel different from my character ability-wise if I do choose to be a mage necromancer? Because I in general, when I pick my main character skill set, is I try to diversify and pick a domain that nobody else in my party is covering. And if Emmerich by default is a necromancer, I'm like, well, snap. Like, out of those three, necromancer is the one that I'm most interested in, and the one I think is going to be the most fun. Because I haven't played a necromancer as my main in any of my previous playthroughs. Do I feel like Emmerich and I are going to step on each other's toes? I don't know. That's my biggest worry, I think.
I think I can answer that.
Go ahead.
Okay.
I believe from the Q&A bit that I shared, that was just general Q&A questions from the BioWare Discord, is that they mentioned that companions have a specialization, but it's different to Rook's specializations. Their classes are a general archetype, like Emmerich is a necromancer, Harding is a rogue, I believe. She's a scout, but she also has their specific skill webs, as I call them, because they're not really a tree, it's a web at this point.
They're unique, essentially.
Yeah, they're all unique. They're all different. They're not actually going to do the same things as you. It's not like in Inquisition, where if you have two people on your squad who are both vanguards, they have the exact same skills.
Right.
It's different.
For instance, Belara is a mage, but she has a bow. So
Yeah.
Which I think is awesome.
yeah.
Which, I don't know if that's a reference to that one mage in Dragon Age Inquisition.
Dalish.
Yeah, Dalish. It's it's a bow.
Yes!
It's a bow. It's gotta be a reference to that, which I think is hilarious.
Oh, I loved her.
I have to ask, how do you all feel about the reveal that Belara isn't missing an arm? Because that was that was one of the things
We all got bamboozled.
I would just like to say, for a while I was saying it's a gauntlet because you can see flesh in it, and I was like, it's not, and everyone was telling me, no, you're wrong, it's a prosthetic, and I was like, I'm telling you it's not, and then the confirmation, and I'm just sat there like,
So is that confirmed that she doesn't have an arm? Is that confirmed?
No, it's
no, it is. It is.
It's a gauntlet.
She
it's a
does
gauntlet.
have an
It is a
arm.
gauntlet. Okay.
It is a
She does
gauntlet.
have
I can see that since Nev does have a prosthetic leg.
Yeah.
So I can see that why Belara would still have her arm, I guess. So.
And Tash has a prosthetic horn, apparently.
Right?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
When you
I
look
never
at
knew that.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah, one of our horn
emerald.
is made out like carved into jade.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's neat. I like
I
that.
also
Mhm.
really love the way that it looks. Like the carved jade looks really cool. It looks
It
awesome.
looks
It
very,
does.
very, very cool.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
Yeah. And that's another
Um,
area of representation is like,
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
Going back to the skill tree or web,
Yes.
as you so eloquently
Yes.
put.
The skill web.
Yeah, skill web, Mikey. I don't know. Are you getting this vibe that we might have a little bit of multi-class or cross-play with how it kind of looked? Now, I could be horribly wrong because if you read the article or you listen to the dev Q&A, they go not too much in detail, but they do kind of break down how, like, we saw Rook, he can dual wield and he could switch to a bow. Now, because I'm a mage user, because magic is the only thing that matters, I'm wondering how will that work? Let's just say if I played as a warrior, right? And I had a two-handed sword and I cross-played, even though my skill tree is thus, will that allow me to kind of dabble into fire magic? Like, I found a rune that allows my sword to burst into flames and I can start, sawing people down,
So my understanding as far as Rook is concerned
Mhm.
is that Rook has completely separate trees based on whether he's a warrior versus a rogue versus a mage.
Okay.
So I don't think you can cross-class mage and warrior together. I
Mhm.
don't think you can do that. However, I do know for the mage, for example, there's sections of the trees that have specific themes,
Mhm.
and I think one of the themes in the web is close combat magic, which I presume is going to sort of represent what you were talking about, because there is a what is it called? There's a specialization which is very much like the Knight Enchanter or whatever the
First Enchanter.
no
Knight Enchanter.
yeah,
Knight
Knight
Enchanter.
Enchanter. Yeah. I think there's one that is similar,
Spellblade,
most
I
similar to the
believe.
Knight Enchanter,
Mhm.
right? Spellblade, which I think is going after what you're thinking about.
Yeah.
And I do know that for the rogue, I believe there is a specialization that dips into magic-like abilities, like elemental magic-like abilities, from my understanding. And then for the warrior, I think the part that separates itself from other warriors in the past is the fact that you can range attack with your shield,
Yeah, man.
which I think is super cool.
Captain America style.
Captain America
Let's
style.
go.
Yeah. So
I mean, the thing that most intrigues me about the webs that we've seen so far across all of them is that it makes it feel like it might actually be more replayable in general, because in Inquisition and in Origins, and 2 to some extent as well, when you play through the game again as the same class, like let's say you decided you wanted to play you went through first as a elf rogue, and then you went through the game again as a dwarven rogue, flatly, the classes were the same.
Yeah.
The only difference was what your character looked like, and certain dialogue choices and maybe people's reaction to you. But other than that, there was no real change. And in this instance, it feels like that I will play through my initial playthrough as always as a warrior with a sword and a shield. But then I'll be like, oh, I really like the fact that in Hark's playthrough he played through as a mage with necromancy. I'm going to play through as a mage who uses one of the other specializations, or I'm going to watch Mika's Let's Play, and I'm going to be like, oh, I really want to play a rogue now, or I want to watch Callista's one, and I want to play a rogue now that does something different. I'm like, all of these just look so cool and so unique compared to the last few games, where at a certain point they were all very samey character development wise when it came to like your character skills. But it seems like there's much more flair and much more uniqueness to each one.
Yeah.
I will say I do like how the combat looks much faster. That was one thing. Like, I'm replaying Inquisition now. Like I have to before Veilguard comes out. I have to. And my canon Inquisitor is a Kunari warrior, with two-handed weapons, and I hadn't played in a while. And when I was playing, I was like, I had forgotten just how slow combat feels as a two-handed warrior. Like I'm just holding down the button and waiting for my next ability, and then I'm just kind of and then holding down the button and waiting. And so like even mage felt a little bit flashier just because you have all these different movements. With warriors basically just that's it. So I do appreciate that from the very beginning of the game, at least for a rogue, you seem to have a lot faster movement. Like people are complaining that it's not enough like Origins, and I'm like, look, Origins combat was very slow. Like let's just
it's definitely dynamic because I'm currently watching a friend play Origins for the first time, and watching Origins, I have not played Origins in like 10 years at this point. So like rewatching Origins gameplay compared to the gameplay trailer we just got, and I'm like, ooh, that's certainly something.
What 15 years will do, glow up situation here between
it feels it definitely feels dynamic.
I mean, I had this argument. I actually had this argument today with a friend who loves Inquisition, DA2, and Origins, and he loves the combat in those games because he plays them on higher difficulties in the tactical style. That's all he does. He does not play them as action RPGs, and I'm like, I have played through all of them on higher difficulties using tactical, but at that point, they feel like a poor man's RTS. It feels like this game should have been a real-time strategy game or a CRPG like Baldur's Gate or like, Divinity Original Sin. They feel like it's just doing that, but light, like soda light, as in LITE. And then the action version is like, okay, this feels like it's a bad Dynasty Warriors game. Like it feels like it's an awful action RPG, and I'm like, you can't sit on the fence with your combat in this day and age when it comes to games. Because if someone was said to me here, I'm like, I love role playing games, and I really want to get into a new fantasy one, I'd be like, have you played Dragon Age Origins? And he would go, no, and I would go, you should play that, but don't play it on any difficulty higher than easy because the combat in it is garbage. And the same with all of the Dragon Age games, play it on the easiest difficulty because it does not matter. The combat in those games is by far the least impactful, least fun part of those games, in my opinion. Now, other people might say, actually, no, I really like the combat. And I'm like, listen, I appreciate your opinion, but I disagree vehemently. And I think that what they're doing here and actually picking a lane and making it good, like they could have either gone full Baldur's Gate 3, make this a CRPG and have it be full strategy, or have it go full action RPG and have it be like full on, Souls-esque, kind of what we've seen so far with the dodging and all that.
Yeah.
But picking one is better than trying to do both. And I think they've learned that finally.
I agree. Yeah. You essentially were going to say what I was going to say, Mikey, because I 100% empathize with all of the fans who miss strategic gameplay and are upset that it feels like they are like choosing a lane. It's not the lane that they wanted. Right. Because Baldur's Gate 3 was very successful. But the combat in Baldur's Gate 3 is very different from, say, the Final Fantasy VII remake. Oh, yeah. Which I know reading some articles that they kind of used the Final Fantasy VII remake combat system to sort of model their system for Dragon Age, the Veilguard. And I too am a bit of a purist when it comes to RPGs. I do lean towards preferring those old school, like pause time, have the ATB bar fill up, and then when it fills up, then your character can finally do something as you wait. Like that's more of my default, because I like that micromanaging and control. However, that being said, I loved the combat in Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I thought if I had to choose between that and the old school way, I would still choose the Final Fantasy Remake way because it just was fun and it was very satisfying and it was executed well. And so I feel that for me, I'll feel the same way with the Veilguard, where, like, you know, I appreciate the Baldur's Gate 3 combat, and if I want the Baldur's Gate 3 combat, I'm going to play Baldur's Gate 3. I'm not going to play Dragon Age. That's what I'm going to play. And then if I want to play Dragon Age, I'm okay with the combat because it's fun and everything else that I want out of the game, which is characters and story. As long as that's solid too, I'll still love it. So yeah, totally understand. And I get why a lot of players are turned off by this game because of the combat. And I can't help you. I guess I can't help you with that. There's Baldur's Gate 3. Recommend Baldur's Gate 3 if they haven't played Baldur's Gate 3 at that point. So
Yep. There is kind of a thing going on Twitter where some negative people are saying, Dragon Age fans flocked to Baldur's Gate 3 and they're not coming back to whatever this game is. And I'm like, have you seen Dragon Age fans? I've been playing Baldur's Gate 3 nonstop for months now, and as soon as that trailer came out, I put it down and I said, sorry honey, I have to go welcome back my wife that I haven't seen in 10 years.
Yeah.
In this instance,
Roma, I don't know if you've seen on Twitter the memes of welcome home cheater. That's people have been
funny.
That's very good. That's very good.
If I may interject, I will say that one of the sweetest things that I saw on social media was the very positive exchange between Larian Studios and the Dragon Age. Yeah, between Larian Studios and the Dragon Age development team on, I don't remember what social media they were on, if it was Instagram or what used to be Twitter. What is it now? What is it now? What's not?
No one cares. No one cares.
Or
No one
it could
cares.
be Blue Sky as well, because I know they're on that as well.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, and essentially for those of you who hadn't seen it, that they were just nothing but supportive of each other. Like Larian says, hey, congratulations to Dragon Age for the trailer. We have been huge fans of the Dragon Age franchise for years. And, we wish you good luck on the release. And then Dragon Age in turn says, hey, Baldur's Gate 3 developers, we're huge fans as well. We kind of saw the original Dragon Age as sort of like a love letter to the original Baldur's Gate series. So I just love the amount of support. There isn't an animosity or at least a serious rivalry, between the two of them. And I personally feel like fans should be the same, should feel the same way. I
agree.
There shouldn't be a competition, in my opinion. It really is apples and oranges. They're both very different games and they cater to different play styles. And me, I can still love both. I can still like both and play both on a whim depending on what I feel. What kind of combat system or story system or whatever comes to play.
I do have to step out pretty soon, but I did want to add this last thing before I step out. There's plenty of media out there that I enjoy. There's plenty of media out there that I would consider myself a fan of. There's not a lot of media out there that I can sincerely say is important to me. Dragon Age is important to me. And I feel like it's important for a lot of us here. For me, it's important because it was the first time I ever had a same-sex relationship in a video game with Liliana. And Liliana, I know she's not a perfect character. She still has a very special place in my heart because of that, because it helped. She helped me kind of become comfortable with who I am. Right. And so I feel like for the fans of Dragon Age, that it does have that level of importance. The comparisons aren't going to matter. Even if it's not even a great game, it's still not going to matter that much because it's still important to us, no matter what comes in the future. So yeah. I just wanted to say that before I hop off. So
I love that. Thank you.
I have to go.
Bye. Thank you for joining us. Thank you so much for joining us Take care, Roma.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
Roma.
Bye.
Hi.
And then there were 5.
There's been a lot of hate on Twitter for for the art style of the teaser trailer and this, that, and t'other. And something that like just seeing people like, oh, this is crap, it looks like crap, I hate it, that was really sad. The other thing that I was kind of disappointed by was people who were saying, I'm not sure about this, I don't know how I feel, and massive Dragon Age stans. Oh, you disagree? Well, you hate Dragon Age then. If you aren't blindly loving everything, then you're not a Dragon Age fan. You're not a real Dragon Age fan. I'm like, how is that? Like, that's just as bad as the people who aren't given a chance. Like, I think criticism, like, especially if it's just like, I'm not entirely sure, I'd like to see more. I'm concerned, like, BioWare have had such a bad past with the past few games they've released, they've not had good releases, and I'm concerned because I love this franchise and I want them to have a good release. That's not hatred. That's not hatred at all. That's just someone being concerned. So in a way, it reminds me of I was big in the Sims 4 community back in the day, and there were people who were like, oh, if you get a pack, we need to be grateful. And it's like, it doesn't work. This pack is broken and doesn't work. Oh, well, you should be grateful. You should be grateful for whatever you've got. We're spending money on this. We have the right to
the wooden
criticize.
pack. Still doesn't work to this day.
Yeah.
And I think, I would argue it's the same with Dragon Age. I think that criticism, constructive criticism, or concerns, I think they're perfectly fine, perfectly acceptable.
Yes.
Blind faith is just as bad as blind hatred, and
yes.
I was
100%.
really disheartened by all of the people oh, you're not real Dragon Age fans, you're concerned about the game's release, you're not thinking purely positive. I was like, this is so disheartening.
It really is.
Leave them alone.
I had a discussion about this with a friend of mine too. He lives in Sweden, so he has a lot more time than I do for this sort of stuff. But he and I were talking about like how BioWare approach their marketing, right? Because trust me, this is related. Trust me. When they released that trailer for Mass Effect 5, like the little teaser of someone in like that long jacket, which I really want to own, by the way. God, I'd look good in that. And like they had that bit with Liara and the N7 plate, and then they had that trailer bit, and then they had the small scene where like the character was walking into the white and all that, and then they have all of this stuff where like they come across very overconfident for a company that have released 2 games that were very, very mediocre. Andromeda was very, very mediocre. Anthem was dead within a year as a live service game. So flatly, BioWare have not game since 2014. The last good game they released was available on the PS3 at launch. That's how long ago it's been since we've had a good BioWare game release in a more than playable condition, because obviously Inquisition had its bugs and stuff, but it was more than playable. People weren't smashing every forum saying, hey, I've got another game killing bug, don't do this specific thing.
It wasn't Cyberpunk.
It wasn't Cyberpunk. It didn't release it out the door unplayable, basically. Yeah. But like there are definitely moments where like I see things like that and I go, BioWare, you shouldn't be this confident in yourself. I appreciate your confidence, but you should release more to us and let us see more, instead of like being like, yeah, it's releasing in fall of 2024, which means at the latest it will release, I think, given how it will be November or October, which means we've got 4 months, less than 4 months. It's the 23rd of June at recording. So we've got less than 4 months, and all we've seen is a gameplay trailer, which was very good. Like it was very instructive and it showed us a lot of content, and it was all played in real time. Great stuff. But please release more. I've been getting trailers for Space Marine 2 every week. There's been dev talks, there's been gameplay reveals, there's been customization reveals. We've been getting something every week, and that game releases in September. That game releases in a little bit more than 2 months. And we've been getting constant feeds of like, here's some cool stuff you get to see about Space Marine, a little 5-minute video. You mean to tell me BioWare couldn't put up a little 5-minute, like, here's someone who has never seen our character creator making a character in the character creator. That would go across so well if they did that. But they probably won't because they feel like they can't fail. I don't know. It feels like they come across very like ponce and very like I'm hoity-toity, I guess, with their trailers and with how they release things. And I'm like, I think we're all over that at this point.
I want to piggyback off of what Callista had said. In that we touched this a bit with my discussion with Shay and Micah on I have zero issues with people sharing their opinions, sharing their knee-jerk reactions to things, and feeling what you're feeling, as long as you're not strong-arming other people to see things your way as a way of self-validation, whether that self-validation is conscious or not. And you know, because I agree also that blind faith and blind hatred are both terrible things. But if that's your knee-jerk reaction, at least initially, then again, feel what you feel, but please try not to have that impact negatively on other people.
Yeah.
You know, that should just be something that you're working through and figuring things out and navigating through without saying, hey, Micah, like, you love this game? Like, what's wrong with you? Yeah, that's basically like was my biggest disappointment from the fandom.
Yeah.
And hopefully the very vocal people on social media are actually the vocal minority. and that is not a full representation of what the fandom is like, because I would be disappointed if that's the full representation of what the fandom is really like, because it doesn't do anyone any favors. And criticizing a game so that it encourages the developers to do better and to make the improvements are good things, which again is a reason why I'm sure they delayed the game for so long, is because they heard the fans and tried to course correct a little bit. So yeah.
No, I totally agree with that. And the funny thing is, for the content creators that have been on the player council, based on what they've talked about, what their experience was, has me excited for the game.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm like I tell everybody, I didn't start playing Dragon Age until Inquisition, and that's the only game I've ever played in the Dragon Age franchise. But as you can tell from my content, I've watched Hark and Callista, and I've absorbed this knowledge, and I am a fan because, what is it, osmosis, like the 1 degree of separation. But you know, again, like coming into it as like a newer fan, as I like to consider myself, I'm very excited. Like, I understand people's criticism because I played Andromeda, and I understand. I didn't deal with what that other game was. I just wasn't interested. So again, it's just, this is preference. When the game comes out and you play it or don't play it, the numbers will speak for themselves when they see, you know, pre-order and all that other stuff. And to kind of piggyback on what Mikey was saying, you know, even though I know they seem more confident going around, for me, I can see how that can come off kind of like, where are y'all coming from with this? But also at the same time, it shows that they're confident in what they've done. So for me, that makes me a little excited. If the devs seem really pumped about it, then that makes me say, okay, maybe they're you know, they're vibing with it, and that has me excited as, you know, this new game is, you know, right around the corner supposedly. Hopefully it doesn't get pushed back, but if it does, I ain't mad about it. And I just hope that when more information drops, like the character customization, when they finally do start releasing more, that it really starts helping people feel a little bit more at ease, because I'm like you, Callista. If people have a problem with it, not problem, but they're concerned, they have every right to be, you know? And I ain't mad about it, you know? But for me, I'm just, call me a BioWare boy. I have the BioWare stamp of approval on my shoulder, but I'm here for it because I've played all the Mass Effect games, you know? And so, I don't know. For me, I'm just very excited until I see something that makes me say, well, you know what I mean? Hope that makes sense. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. Let me ask a fun question to the group, because I am curious. What what are you planning on building as your main? What class? What race? What faction? Specialization, if you've already thought of that far ahead. Are you going first, Mikey?
Yeah, that's the N7.
That's my BioWare stamp of approval.
That's your
Yeah.
BioWare. Okay.
The BioWare stamp of
There-
approval, the
there we
N7
go.
tattoo.
Yes.
I mean, I'll go first as
Anything-
well, if
Go
that's
ahead.
okay.
Go ahead, Mikey.
Yeah,
go ahead.
So I'm basically planning on doing my very standard warrior. I haven't decided if I want to go
Yeah.
or human yet. Mostly because those are the ones that I usually associate with the most.
Qunari or human.
Yeah. Because being able to go Qunari means I can make my character tall as hell, which is always fun.
Right.
As for background, I'm actually thinking Warden. If I can make a Qunari Grey Warden,
Ooh.
that would be really fun. I think that would be a really fun interaction because you also have Darwin and his little griffin pet, and I'm
Oh
like,
my God,
I love this. I want this in my life because I would really love there to be an option where you know how in Baldur's Gate or in D&D or anything like that in general, you can play a druid who has an animal companion. I would really like the Grey Warden to kind of be druid adjacent, and you can pick a specialization that gives you access to griffin pets. I think that would be really cool as an option. So yeah, that would be my sort of first one. Would be Qunari Warrior Grey Warden.
Have you also thought about romance characters yet, or not yet?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I'm like Callista in that my warden really wanted some of that Harding.
Yeah.
Sorry, my warden,
Sure.
my Inquisitor. My Inquisitor
Sure.
really wanted some of that Harding.
Sure. Okay.
I'm sort of torn between her and Darwin though, because I like Darwin. I think he's got a bit of attitude about him. I think he's got a little bit of that like
Davrin.
Yeah, he
Davrin.
comes across very like fun and chill, and he's got like that interaction that you see in the trailer with him and the Griffin, where he like holds the shield up and the Griffin jumps over the shield. But I think he'd actually be quite a sweetheart. I think he'd be really fun.
Callista or Kiwi?
I can go.
Go ahead.
So here's the thing. I don't tend to focus on the races and all of that. I focus on the background of the character because I'm all about that RPG. So my first thought was like, oh, maybe like a former slave. You know, they were freed from a Tevinter magic. And upon seeing the things, I was like, oh, maybe their magister was killed by an Antivan crow, and the crow was like, oh, this poor slave child, you will come with me, and I will train you to be an assassin. And I was like, oh yeah, maybe like a Qunari slave, and they've grown up in this and I was just like that's kind of where my head was at. In terms of romances, I don't know. I'd like to see their personalities. I will admit, like Mikey, I'm intrigued by Davrin, mainly because I discovered that the voice actor for Davrin was the voice actor for Javik. I've only just met Javik. I'm let's playing Mass Effect 3 for the first time on my channel
that
right
voice,
now, and
though?
I've just met Javik, and I was like, oh, and someone was like, that's the same voice actor for Davin. I was like, oh my god. And so I'm very excited to see his performance as Davin. Very excited for that.
To be fair, I probably mentioned this before, but I will probably have a character for each romance. But the first one will.
Hey, yeah, do it.
But my first one will most likely be a warden. I have no idea what lineage/race I'll go for first. But first romance has to be a merc. Has to be the necromancer.
Bone Daddy, let's go.
Yep. Like
Slay,
Micah,
Bone Daddy.
in your video when you mentioned that meme, like the
There's
so
this
there's
old
that
senior citizen.
there's this senior citizen.
Oh my god, yes.
Well,
Like,
that
that was-
you gotta see your citizen discount at least.
That part. AARP, boo.
From a representation standpoint, I do find that games like this tend to lean towards a younger protagonist, like someone in their 20s, maybe their 30s. And I think you certainly could make an older character that's like in their 40s or 50s, for example.
Which is probably what I'm going to do.
Yeah, I see myself
I just
creating
hope
someone who's in their 40s, maybe.
I just
late
hope they
40s,
won't,
mid
like-
40s.
shoehorn the fact that your character is younger. Because
Right.
you had
That's what I don't want.
yeah, you had the option to make your warden wrinkled in Dragon Age Origins, but then if you played through the Dalish origin, everyone called you Dalin, which is like young one. So you're just like, yes, young. I look older than you, child.
Yeah, I don't think that will happen because I don't think this is a spoiler, but it has been confirmed that Rook is meant to be meant to have experience to the point where they are not the hero or the main protagonist of this game because they were like the chosen one, or like it landed on their lap and there was some sort of like what they call magical MacGuffin that sort of that pulled you into and sucked you into. It was more like the Rook thought, hey, there's a thing that's gone up. I think I'm capable of fixing this problem, and I'm choosing to do it. I'm choosing to do something about it, and I'm like, I love that. And so it feels like they won't by default treat you like a Dalen, or a green person. Mike, I think you already shared this before, but for the people who didn't see the other video, do you want to share again? Who right now, or maybe it changed? I don't know if it changed, but.
Well, okay. So I'm going to be a mage, as I said before. Magic is the only thing that matters. And hello, we're into Venter. Magic. Okay. So I think I'm going to be a combat mage because I'm always been that kind of person that likes to be up close and personal, like in your face. Now, race, I'm still drumming in my head if I'm going to go, Canary or elf. Because in my Dragon Age Inquisition, my canon Inquisitor is human, and his name is Micah. I'll fight you. But now with Rook, I'm looking for the hook that's gonna make me say one or the other.
The Rook hook.
Yeah, the Rook with that hook. You know how he gonna pull you. Hook. Yeah, he gonna pull you in, boo.
I'm so shook.
Anybody got another one? But my romances. Okay, I'm gonna be honest with you. It's between Davrin and Neve. They are in number one spot. There is something about when you see Neve and she's like, Harding, Varric. I was like, Mommy, marry me. I'm on my knee. Let's go. And Davrin, it's just something about him I like. And then to see that he likes to carve wood on that photo, that group photo, he had a chunk of wood in his hand. And I'm like, oh my God, this is the cutest thing. And I get a fur baby for free. I'm sold. But I would say my fourth option is Harding. And at first it was Lucanus, but now it's Balara. I don't know. There's something about her I'm really starting to like more and more and more. So she might end up getting to first place. That's just my honest opinion. I don't know. Something about her I just love. I love her Valicine. I think she's gorgeous. I'm conflicted. But
yes,
you mentioned Lucanus, my entire brain went, actually, maybe he should be number one, and my brain just reset. And I'm like, why do you do this to me, Dragon Age? Stop
that. Look, he fierce.
The images we got of Balara in the article,
right?
They're gorgeous.
And that smile,
that's what. Oh my God!
Oh my God, they're so cute.
Right?
I'm exclusively into men, but Jesus Christ.
We gonna pull you over to the lady side of the thing. Come on now. Look, Rook with the hook, honey. I'm just kidding. No.
There you go. Some things have changed for me actually since the last time I spoke with Shay and Micah. In that, so I still would like to play a mage. I'm not holding my breath that they're going to open that up to dwarves at the character creator.
Yeah.
So race-wise, I'm still torn between elf or Qunari. And I'm just I guess I think I want to see how many options there are as a Qunari. And it feels like I can get my Qunari to look exactly the way I want them to look like, then I'll probably go Qunari. Otherwise, I'll go elf. I originally was pretty gung-ho about going Veil Jumper, but the more I read about the Veil Jumper, I kind of really felt more enticed towards the Mornwatch instead,
Mhm.
because I'm still so fascinated by Navaran culture. I think that the concept of having a culture where death and death magic is a big part, that just really fascinates me. And I do have an attachment right now towards the Emmerich character.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's romantic attachment, but at minimum, I would love to at least be his BFF, or at least be like on the same wavelength of things, especially just because I feel like him as the oldest party member, I can see him kind of feeling not left out, but not relating to the other companions as much. So if I was the one who sort of became their bridge, I guess, with other party members, at least he has one friend maybe that he or associate at the beginning. That's something that's really like enticing towards me. And again, I'm still open to a possible romance with Emmerich. I just have to figure out what his personality is like. But reading the article, I had learned that Davrin is a very charming character. Haven't seen his character portrayed yet, but if I know myself based on previous games, charm like is a huge weakness of mine. Like it happened with Cullen, it happened with Alistair,
Right.
It happens with Asterion and Gale. Like those are the and I mean not just Asterion and Gale, but also Will is super charming too. Holston, I mean they're all charming. So I don't know if I'm gonna go Davrin, although there's something about Lucanus that's just crazy sexy to me, and I was a huge sucker about. I had a huge obsession of fixing up my origin character with Cullen, my origin mage with Cullen, and since I couldn't do that, then I rolled an Inquisitor mage to romance with Cullen. So having a mage that romances the mage killer Lucanus, I just feel like that's a pattern that I can't break very easily.
Forbidden love in the best
the forbidden love thing,
Right.
Yeah.
You're just gonna love the hate out of him. All right now.
I don't know if there was an option, especially since you shared with us that Micah, that Lucanus was created to be bisexual specifically. If there was an option to like have a polyamorous relationship with Davrin and Lucanus, like I'd be one happy panda.
Right.
That's a hell of a sandwich to be in the middle of.
My God.
Yeah, throw in the Griffin there, and I mean...
Right? You have a whole family. Look at you. I'm scared of you.
I mean, that's exactly what I was thinking as well, is that, like, okay, so you can pick one, but if you can pick two...
Right?
Oh no!
Right? Like,
I really hope that... No, what I really hope they don't do is they don't make it, like, super, like... preachy on the polyamory side, like it's a case of like everyone is polyamorous. I kind of want there to be people who are like, no, you're with me and with me only, or you know, we're breaking up, sort of thing. I would prefer that over everyone being available in that sort of situation. But
I would feel like that too.
That's my only point.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. If I had to choose, though, the hardest choice for me would just be the Griffin or the skeleton. The Griffin or the skeleton?
Oh, you can't beat those feathers, though. Those feathers, man. And it's like...
The skeleton can get you, like, stuff. You know, like, they can fetch you stuff. The Griffin, you have to teach.
No,
Manfred has cool glasses, though.
This is true.
Yeah.
He's fashionable.
On a cool factor, Manfred wins, because he's got them glasses and the hat. I'm like, yeah.
No.
But on a cuteness factor, the Griffin wins.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough.
Fair.
It's tough. We'll see.
Goodness. I forgot to mention this. Lord of Fortune was the faction I was interested in. Yes, I think that would be very fun.
Barbarian pirates, I think, is how they describe them. Or
yeah. Also, the second I heard pirates and Lord of Fortune, I was like, better see Isabella somewhere. Like, I'm sorry, but like that sounds like, and they're like they have roots in Ravane. Like, that sounds like an Isabella thing. Like,
the Admiral needs to make an appearance. She really does.
Yeah, she has her hands in that. I swear.
Another thing that they did mention for the character creator, which does actually impact your factions, is that I hope when it comes to like body tattoos, because they mentioned there are body tattoos and face tattoos.
Mhm.
I hope that you
man.
can be a pirate who has like pirate style tattoos,
Ooh.
or like
Oh my
Mm.
god,
you can be a
yes.
warden with warden tattoos, or you can be an Antivan crow with crow tattoos. Like I want there to be like
Oh, could you
a
imagine?
general like overall these are the available to everyone tattoos, but there's like
Or
3 or
eye
4
patches.
eye patches, yeah, that sort of
You
thing.
know,
A peg leg, that'd be nice.
peg leg, a hook.
Right?
Or, I don't know. I kind of want to see a mage using
A hook hand
you
to
know,
cast
a hook
spells.
hand. The hook for the rook.
Yes!
The hook for the rook.
Yes, let's go! Let's go!
Wow.
Oh my god.
Wow. And then extending that, and it's okay if you haven't thought about this. Have you thought of a name? A name for your rook? You have thought of a name.
But
okay.
I'll go last.
Okay.
I have one for one of my rooks, which is my Lord of Fortune, which is not even the first one I'm going with. So I'm like, I don't know why I don't have a name for my first one, but my Lord of Fortune rook is going to be named Blanche.
Yes.
Blanche.
Hey.
Mhm. I like that name.
Mm-hmm.
I like that name.
It's not dependent on if I choose Quinari or human. It's Invictus.
Invictus.
Nice.
I
Love
like
it.
that.
Very cool.
Yes.
So I did have a name for my Kunari. However, I'm quickly like, I need to change this because the image I had in my head was a Kunari lady with a braid, and she was going to be called Ash, like Ash Kari. And then we have Tash, who has a braid, and I'm just like, oh no. Like, it's too similar. I'm like, I've got to. So like, I had a name, and then Tash got revealed, and I was like, I need to switch you up. I need to switch up your name and your design. This is not. I can't do this.
For my character, this is still a work. I'm still workshopping it, so I don't know if this will be the final name for them. But because I am pretty now gung ho about a Mornwatch back story.
Mm-hmm.
I want to find out. I don't want to have a name that was related to death, but in a positive, like a
Like
benevolent
renewal?
way,
Mm-hmm.
something like that, something like renewal.
Mm-hmm.
And the one that I kind of so far am thinking about is, may not sound like it's associated with death, but it kind of does, is Zen, because like being in a state of Zen means you're sort of like having this state of mind, state of body, state of soul.
Mm-hmm.
Zen also is associated with your soul, I think, to some degree. And I think when I'm thinking death in a positive way, it's more like your resting place, your peace and like tranquility. And I thought having a character named Zen would be kind of cool, especially if I like spelled it with an X at the beginning instead of a Z.
Yeah.
Xen, Zen. I'm like, it sounds very Kinari as well. I can also see that being an Elven name too. But that's my thought at the moment.
Oh, I like that. That is so cool. You guys are so creative. I'm scared of y'all. Well, I'm gonna be real with y'all. I'm the most basic of basic bitches. So remember Clementis Star? Remember how he
Yes.
hops universes? Well, guess what? He left Baldur's
Oh.
Gate. He left Baldur's Gate. He left
nice.
Dragon Age. No. He left Baldur's Gate. He left Dragon's Dogma 2. And now he's hopping over into Dragon Age as a Lord of Fortune with tattoos. Could you imagine?
I see that.
Could you imagine?
Clementis, then?
Yes, Clementis.
I
Yes.
love that.
So this is
I
my
like that name a lot.
Thank you.
I do.
So
like that.
Yes.
that's kind of why I'm teetering back and forth with. That's why I'm thinking if I do go elf, it kind of makes sense. He already has the pointy ears,
Mhm,
you know,
mhm.
and he was a celebrity. I mean, why not be a famous
Yeah.
pirate? You know, let's go.
Mhm.
I mean,
like that.
I could definitely see a Lord of Fortune mage who is also a bit of a bard, who's like, using magic to play instruments, and like on they're going between the bars of the
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
seas, being like singing songs and enjoying merriment. I definitely get that. That's a cool idea. I like that.
Come on now. Thank you. I appreciate it. But no, that's where I went with my thing. Oh, one other thing. I heard Callista, I heard you mention this backstories. Are you guys already cooking up backstories? I'm just curious.
Yes.
I will wait, mainly because they mentioned something that's pretty interesting, so I will wait on seeing, depending on which faction you go with in game, because we do know that elves can be either city elves or Dalish elves. And we know that it hasn't been explained whether or not Rook is either one of them. If you play as an elf, it's because depending on your faction, they can be either. So that has been revealed. I don't remember where exactly, but that's in my notes somewhere. So
I'm trying to keep my backstory very broad because I don't know what the game is going to be feeding your Rook's backstory. But in terms of personality, I want him to be very different from Emmerich. Even though I do see him as being a necromancer from the Mornwatch, I want his personality to be not necessarily the first thing you would think of when you're thinking about necromancer mage, because I want him to be like this high energy, happy-go-lucky, hey everybody, like super social, not like this morose, quiet. I sort of see my character origin-wise sort of being like Maria from The Sound of Music. They're going, how do you solve a problem like Zen? Because he's a flippity-gibbet, a will-o-wisp, a clown. Like, that's sort of what I'm hoping for, and just trying to mash that sarcastic Rook or like humorous Rook tone as much as I can, because I think that would just be really fun. Because death doesn't have to be like boring. I'm not that death is boring. Like you can have a high energy, like I guess priest of death, but still very very like religious and takes the religion seriously, just like Maria did too in The Sound of Music. She took her calling, at least at the moment, as a nun very seriously, but that didn't stop her from being the personality that she had. So,
Invictus is going to be a very charming, very funny, very much life of the party type warrior. Like there's a reason why he's going to be a champion, is because everyone notices when he walks in the room, not just because he's a big, huge person, but because he has a big aura. Like he has this thing that makes everyone kind of turn to him and go, "Oh, I notice you specifically because you have something about you." And when he talks, he's very like calm and collected, and he's always very like in combat situations, he's always very calm, collected, and ready to go. And then outside of combat, he's always very charming and very suave and very generous with his time with people. So I'm hoping to bring that to the table. As for how he ended up as a Grey Warden, as a Quinari, or as a human in this situation, I have ideas, but yet again, I need more background on how our Rook ended up in the situation they're in.
For me, something
Go ahead, Close.
I really hope, because I very rarely play characters like this, but the idea for Ash, name pending, the idea I had for, pardon my language, just raging bitch, like just someone who is so angry and is just going around like, I'm here to murder Solus, that is my goal, that is my mission, which completely goes against what my Lavella, she's like, I'm gonna save Solus, and there's Rook being like, no, sit down, fixing this with death. Like, that was... I'm just like, I want to play this. Like, I don't know how much...
That. I do too.
I don't know how much the game will allow.
I want to watch that so bad.
That was
all
my
I can
initial thing,
imagine...
I'm like...
All I can imagine in my head is that your first episode doesn't open up with the Dragon Age soundtrack, it opens up with the Doom 2016
Come on now!
Just rip and tear until you kill that egg.
Come on now. Oh my god.
Can I make a request, Callista, that at some point during your storyline, when you play the game, can you please have your Rook demand to see the manager at some point? Because I feel like I demand to see your manager.
Hark, why?
Pasha would be proud.
Pasha
and in
would
that
be
moment,
proud.
in
There
that
you go.
moment, Pasha was looking over Rook and said, "Do it."
Right? She's one of the gods. Let's go.
Right, in my head canon, Ash would be worshipping Pasha.
Yes.
Would be worshipping God, but in my head
Right?
canon.
Oh my god, that was genius.
My heart.
Pasha the Unyielding.
Right? Oh my god, I love it. The raging bitch with like, I could just see her with her axe.
Mhm.
Like, I need to talk to your manager. And
Yeah.
just like, and it's like, if only Zen was there to kind of help, mellow, but I don't think that would
Yeah.
help.
All I imagine is just that old Family Guy meme of Peter loading a shotgun going, I just want to talk to him. I just want to talk to him. As
Let's go.
Meg is like, no, Dad, don't do this.
I would kind of want to just have the 5 of our characters form a party, in this game. It just feels like we have an interesting
That's
dynamic.
Hark's return to
Very interesting
tabletop
dynamic.
campaigns in 10 years.
There. Oh my
It-
gosh,
it-
no,
it's-
no, don't even start. No,
Mm,
no. My husband would be so angry at you right now, Mikey. Would be so upset. at the mere
Colin and I'll
suggestion.
hog it out. We're
Just
fine.
one more.
We'll
Just
hog it
one more.
Fine.
Right?
Just one more, honey. Just one more, sweetheart.
Right?
We say
All
that
I'm
for the
gonna do is
next
back
5
your eye at
years.
him. Right?
I'm sorry. I
Just one more
had
hit,
this
one
image
more
of
roll of the dice.
Just Colin going, "You said you would quit. I can quit anytime.
Anytime
one
I
last
want.
one."
Just one more. One more. One more.
I support this.
If you've made
I
it
ship
through, if you made it through this video all this way, just like comment down below. Hark returning
one
to
more.
tabletop role playing games in 10
Oh my
years.
gosh.
Hark returning
Just one
2020, 2034.
Oh my god.
Yeah, there you go.
Oof.
Oh my goodness.
Hashtag Hark for DM 2024.
There it is. There it is. I ship it. I support it. I give it a stamp of approval. Yes.
You're enablers.
No,
You're all horrible
Of course
enablers.
we are.
Oh,
What do you expect us
Oh.
not to be, Hark?
we're just embracing your gift and your talents, and we are just trying to lift you up in positivity.
Colin
Back
sprints
to
into the
Dragon
room,
Age.
Right?
turns off
Back
the
to the
PC.
Veilguard.
Right?
Anyway, yes,
Okay.
yes. I'm really looking forward to like the stories that our rooks will have prior
Yeah.
to
Yes.
these games, because
Mhm.
if you're playing someone who's if you're like Hark and you want to play someone who's maybe in the 40s or 50s, I want to know
Yes.
what they have done to get to this
Right.
point. Because that's a
Yes.
lot of time. That's a lot of
Yes.
life to live, especially in a place like
Yeah.
Thedas. Because if your character's in their 40s or 50s and say they're a Grey Warden, they might be getting to the end of their time naturally as a Grey Warden. They've
Mhm.
seen
That's true.
They were maybe like a young child when Ferelden was being invaded. Like they were a teenager, probably of 50s.
Probably, yeah.
Or maybe in their 50s ish, And it's a case of you get to bring someone into this case who goes, yeah, I'm a Grey Warden. I've been around for a long time. I'm 50 exactly, which means that I maybe have a couple more years before I just leave down into the deep roads and never be seen again, because
Right.
I'm going to turn into a darkspawn in the next 5 years, which is a very interesting dynamic.
Which is exactly why I am romancing Emmerich with specifically a Grey Warden.
Oh.
Because I thought someone like a
Oh.
necromancer would probably have a very interesting take on death and whatever the
Mhm.
calling means
Yes.
for a Grey Warden.
That's true. That is very true.
So I'm very curious
Mm.
to see if the game actually acknowledges something like that, because I know that each of the character are going to have different dialogues depending on Rook's
Mhm.
different faction choices.
Mhm.
So I'm curious to see how deep that goes.
If there's nothing else, thank you to the 4 of you plus Roma for joining me in this very fun conversation. I hope those of you who are watching at least found certain parts of this interesting. Maybe you learned something along the way. And thank you so much for watching. I will continue to try to have even more discussion videos, analysis videos, as more content about Dragon Age, the Veilguard comes out. I very much intend on trying to do my own mini-series where we will spend dedicated time focusing on each of the companions individually, possibly having one of these 6, if you include Shay and Roma, to participate with me on these deep dives of these characters and their factions that they represent. So hopefully that's something that you all can look forward to as we count down the days where the Veilguard will be upon us. So again, check out everybody's channels. If they end up having a conversation about some of the plot spoiler stuff that was in the Game Informer article or other things, I'll include those in the links below if those do exist. And yeah, until next time, everybody, love yourselves and love each other. Bye-bye.
Bye. Hashtag Hark for DM 2034.
Yeah.